All right, so we have one last example of producer and consumer surplus. So we're going to sketch and identify the regions of producer and consumer surplus, set up integrals for both, but in this case, we're only going to calculate producer surplus. So same as before, my first step is to find that equilibrium point by setting my supply function and my demand function equal. So here we want to be careful. How do we solve this? I have 10 over x plus 4. Same as in the previous question. I want to get everything to one side with 0 on the other to get a polynomial that I can factor. So a good way to do that would be to start by multiplying both sides by x plus 4 and clearing that denominator. So I have 10 is equal to x squared plus 5x plus 4. Now I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to flip the sides of this thing. So I have x squared plus 5x minus 6 is equal to 0, which gives me x plus 6 times x minus 1 is equal to 0. So there I just did product sum factor. 6 times negative 1 gives me negative 6. 6 minus 1 gives me a positive 5. So this gives me an x value of negative 6. And an x value of positive 1. I get rid of the negative 6. I only keep the positive. Negative values do not make sense in terms of consumer and producer surplus. We're not going to have a negative number of units. So that's my x sub e. And then I can plug it into whichever one I want to find my p sub e. Clearly, the supply function looks really simple to plug into. So we'll plug into my supply function to get p sub e is equal to 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. So my equilibrium point is 1, 2. Pretty straightforward. Now we want to graph this thing. So I'm going to graph my equilibrium point, but remember that we also want our y-intercepts. So in other words, when x is equal to 0. So here for p sub d, I get 10 over 0 plus 4, which is equal to 5 over 2. So my y-intercept is 0, 5 over 2. And for p sub s, I get 0 plus 1, and my y-intercept is just 0, 1. Now 5 over 2, that's about 2.5. So I'm actually going to do these in like 1/2. So I'll have that be 1/2. I'll have that be 1. I'll have that be 3 over 2. I'll have that be 2. And I'll have that be 5 over 2. Okay, and my equilibrium point is 1, 2. So I'm going to go by 1/2 here as well. 1. And then my equilibrium point happens right here. Ta-da. So, oops. That's my equilibrium point. So that's x sub e, p sub e. Now we'll start with the supply function because the supply function is really straightforward to graph. Our 0, 1. And then x plus 1 is just a straight line. So I'm just drawing my straight line through that. Now you might be wondering, well, what does 10 over x plus 4 look like? 10 over x plus 4 is a rational function. Actually, let's do that in red. Is a rational function because it has the fraction, it's got the x in the denominator, it's a rational function. We can see that it has a vertical asymptote at x equals -4 because that has a constant on the top, but it causes division by 0. So here, I'm going to do this one in green. What do rational functions look like? Well, rational functions tend to have a vertical asymptote and to look something like this. So they're kind of parabola-esque, but they're going to have that horizontal asymptote somewhere, and they're going to also have that vertical asymptote usually. So in other words, I really just need to kind of have it rounded down like that. So then when I'm drawing this, my vertical asymptote is at -4, so it's way over to the left. I don't have to think about it. So I'm just kind of doing this like rounded down thing. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It just can't be a straight line. You don't want it rounded up like that. You need to make sure that it's just rounded down. All right, so this gives me my demand function, and this is my supply function. And then we know that consumer surplus, the demand function goes with consumers, consumer surplus is on top, but the supply function goes with producers, so producer surplus is on the bottom. There you go. Hey. All right, so now we want to set up the integrals for both of them. So consumer surplus is going to be equal to the integral from 0 to 1, my x sub e, of the demand function. So in this case, my demand function was 10 over x plus 4 minus my equilibrium price. My equilibrium price was 2 dx. Now that's my final answer for this because we were not asked to calculate it, which is good because that 10 over x plus 4 is not a known form, and we actually haven't learned how to calculate that yet. We will, don't worry. So, I'm sorry, this is our step 2 that we're on here. So then my producer surplus we're actually asked to calculate. Producer surplus, 0 to 1 as well, but now I'm doing 2 minus x plus 1 dx. Again, I said it in the last problem and the problem before, don't forget your parentheses around the x plus 1 since we're distributing that minus sign. So this is the integral from 0 to 1 of 1 minus x dx. Those are some simple antiderivatives, x minus 1/2 x squared, 0 to 1, which gives me 1 minus 1/2, minus 0 minus 0, which gives me a 1/2. And normally that 1/2 would be the perfect answer because fractions are wonderful and decimals are not. But this is money. Producer surplus is money. So we want our answer to be in terms of money. So 1/2 is the same as 0.5. So producer surplus in this case is actually only 50 cents. So producer surplus is 50 cents. And that is my final answer. And that is all we're going to do with producer and consumer surplus. Bye.